The history of Bitcoin. When did Bitcoin start? On October 31, 2008, an anonymous individual who went by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto published a white paper detailing a design for a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, a global financial infrastructure based on cryptographic proof instead of trust. Over a decade later, cryptocurrencies are now being discussed regularly in the context of global economic policy, with some nations even researching and developing their own digital currencies. The underlying data structure of Bitcoin, BTC, often referred to as the blockchain, has also been researched and implemented in use cases ranging from supply chain management to logistics, cross-enterprise resource planning, energy trading, decentralized autonomous organizations, and much more. The purpose of this video is to provide the newcomer with a comprehensive understanding of Bitcoin, covering the social and technological context of its inception, key events in its history, how it works, descriptions of its unique properties, and guides on how to participate within this new financial paradigm. It is hoped that by the end of this video, the reader will have a balanced perspective of one of the most fascinating technological and financial developments of the modern era, the prehistory of Bitcoin. While the story often begins with the anonymous Satoshi publishing a white paper on Halloween 2008, there is an often neglected yet vibrant prehistory of Bitcoin that is essential to understanding it as a techno-social phenomenon decades in the making. And adoption within this community have come to define its values, virtues, and fundamental. This guide to Bitcoin will begin by first charting the social and technical currents that led to its inception. Examining these currents is useful for discussing the past, present, and future of Bitcoin. The ideology of Bitcoin. While it might seem odd to suggest a Bitcoin ideology, considering its decentralized nature, the fact is that Bitcoin's initial support base consisted mostly of tech-savvy individuals, libertarians, and crypto-anarchists. Bitcoin's inception design. When Satoshi revealed their proposal for Bitcoin, it garnered just a small amount of interest and criticism from a very niche online community of cryptographers and computer scientists. Many of these individuals had been involved in digital cash experiments throughout the 80s and 90s. To them, Bitcoin was simply the latest in a long sequence of experiments in creating monetary systems that respected individual freedom and privacy. In tracing the ideological roots back far enough, it can be found that Bitcoin's formative influence largely stems from the discourse surrounding two particular communities: extropians. In 1988, a futurist named Max More put forth the philosophy of extropianism in a series of written principles that detailed an evolving framework of values and standards for continuously improving the human condition through the use of emerging technologies such as cryogenics, artificial intelligence, robotics, mimetics, genetic engineering, space travel, and more. An extropian individual is someone who actively builds and tests these systems for the betterment of humanity while adhering to a strictly rationalist mindset unhindered by dogmatism. One of the core concepts of this community is life extension through the use of cryogenics, mind uploading, and other means. This transhumanist ideology brought together a community of scientists and futurists who shared these ideas on early online forums. From the late 80s into the early to mid-90s, the extropians prototyped designs for alternative currencies, idea markets, prediction markets, reputation systems, and other experiments that foreshadowed much of the current crypto space. A number of cryptocurrency pioneers were active in the extropian community, including Nick Szabo and Hal Finney. Cypherpunks. Similar to the extropians, the cypherpunks were united by a shared emphasis on technology to create a better world. The cyberpunk subgenre of sci-fi literature often portrays a future in which a global cabal of corporations effectively rules the world through ubiquitous surveillance systems, with the protagonists often being hackers or other individuals maneuvering through this dystopian society. The cypherpunks were so called because they saw the works of authors John Brunner, William Gibson, and Bruce Sterling as plausible scenarios, given the trends in sociopolitical progress and technological innovation. They believed that the rise of global computer networks mediated by governments and corporations would systematically compromise liberty and freedom. The cypherpunks were a community of cryptographers, computer scientists, and futurists dedicated to building the systems necessary to secure individual sovereignty amid a potential surveillance state. Contrary to the extropians, the cypherpunks emphasized a particular set of technologies around encrypted communication networks, including anonymous messaging and electronic money. Many of the digital currency experiments throughout the 1990s and early 2000s were directly driven by the cypherpunk movement. This community is the soil from which Bitcoin grew. The birth of Bitcoin. While entire books and podcasts have covered the history of Bitcoin in great detail, for the purposes of this guide, only the landmark moments in Bitcoin's history will be covered, and their significance within the evolving story of cryptocurrency will be unpacked. Genesis. After Satoshi published their 8-page proposal for a new digital cash system on a mailing list, they opened the project up to discussion and debate from an online group of cryptographers, computer scientists, and digital cash veterans. While Satoshi had written much of the Bitcoin codebase before publishing the white paper, they opened it up to public scrutiny among an online community of peers. From the early days, Bitcoin was an open-source software project built and maintained by a community of developers and enthusiasts. On November 8, 2008, Bitcoin was registered on the open-source software development platform SourceForge. This was when Bitcoin became a team project. On January 3, 2009, the Genesis block, or Block 0, for Bitcoin was mined by Satoshi over 7 days. In this initial transaction, also referred to as a generation transaction or Coinbase, Satoshi famously included the following message. The time 03 January 2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This message was a clear signal of Bitcoin's intentions. As the world was experiencing the largest financial crisis since the Great Depression, a new vision for a monetary system separate from the state was born. On January 12, 2009, the first post-Genesis Bitcoin transaction occurred between Satoshi and cryptography activist Finney in Block 170. Finney is also reported to have been the first person to mine Bitcoin alongside Satoshi after the network's launch. Bitcoin Pizza Day. The first recorded use of Bitcoin in the exchange of a good or service occurred on May 22, 2010 when Floridian programmer Laszlo Hanieks offered to pay 10,000 BTC for pizza. The initial exchange rate for Bitcoin had only been established a few months prior. The price of the 2 large Papa John's pizzas was estimated at around $25 at the time of purchase. As of March 2021, those 2 pizzas would have exceeded $500 million in value. While many commentators joke about Hanieks' transaction in retrospect, it is important to note how nascent the Bitcoin network was at the time. In the discourse around Bitcoin's use case as a medium of exchange, Hanieks' famous transaction is often brought up as an example of how the incredible range in Bitcoin's price history would seem to run counter to its use as an effective currency. With the scarce supply capped at 21 million, people may not wish to use it as cash but rather as a long-term investment to hodl in industry parlance. Nonetheless, Hanieks' pioneering purchase proved that Bitcoin could, in fact, be used as a digital P2P transaction system. BTC Rush, the birth of the mining industry. In the early days of the Bitcoin economy, the way people participated in the network and obtained Bitcoin was through the mining process. Mining is the process by which the network continuously validates broadcasted transactions and records them in the distributed ledger in the form of linked blocks of transaction data, producing a cryptographically secure, verifiable history of transactions over time. The Bitcoin network is designed such that miners are rewarded for securing uptime of the network through block rewards issued in Bitcoin. This also serves as the minting process for the Bitcoin currency. On November 27, 2010, Slush Pool launched. The oldest mining pool in the Bitcoin industry, Slush Pool provided prospective miners a means to pool together computational resources to mine Bitcoin and share in the block rewards proportionate to work done. This allowed individuals lacking an abundant CPU power to collectively participate in the network's operations and earn Bitcoin in the process. Since then, the mining industry has become less of a cottage industry and more of a large-scale, energy-intensive business operation with a relatively small number of companies producing the majority of the hashing power. While the scope of cryptocurrency mining has changed considerably with the emergence of many other cryptocurrencies, Slush Pool marked an important milestone in the history and maturation of the Bitcoin network. Exit Satoshi. On April 26, 2011, Satoshi departed the Bitcoin project, handing the reins of development to Gavin Andresen and the open-source community. Until this point, Bitcoin's development had basically been led by Satoshi, whoever they may have been. In retrospect, the inventor's anonymity was core to the success and persistence of the Bitcoin project. With law enforcement agencies cracking down on nefarious uses of cryptocurrencies in the years that followed, it would have been natural that had Satoshi been irrefutably identified, the creator of a borderless, permissionless, privacy-preserving alternative monetary system would have received a sentence not unlike Ulbricht's. Satoshi walking away from the project was essential for Bitcoin to remain true to its foundation as a trust-minimized, decentralized, resilient financial system. Why Bitcoin is so important? As hinted, Bitcoin is a virtual or digital currency. Like other cryptocurrencies, blockchain is the basis of Bitcoin. That means it is entirely decentralized. Essentially, no central bank, government, or authority can control or regulate Bitcoin. A peer-to-peer community comprising network computers maintains the Bitcoin network. Each user is considered a node and has equal rights in the network. Using blockchain creates an effective digital database or a distributed public ledger, and this ledger runs through cryptography, and it records all Bitcoin transactions. Bitcoin mining is a process via which miners confirm every transaction manually, and this makes Bitcoin transactions secure. Through the mining process, all information that enters the Bitcoin blockchain undergoes mathematical checking. The Bitcoin network confirms and verifies all entries into a public ledger. Miners also check any change in the database. Bitcoin is one of the pioneer cryptocurrencies to use blockchain technology. Since the introduction of this cryptocurrency in 2009, no hacker has managed to infiltrate it. And this has proven to most investors that it's a safe investment. What's more, the meteoric rise of Bitcoin's value has captured many investors' attention. Today, people are trading this cryptocurrency on platforms like Bitcoin Loophole. These are known as crypto exchanges that facilitate the purchase and sale of cryptocurrencies. Perhaps you can visit this trading app. Bitcoin has also proven to be a valuable value storage asset. That's why some people compare it with gold. During an economic crisis, Bitcoin has proven its ability to withstand challenges better than fiat money. Thus, you can use this cryptocurrency to store value during a financial crisis. Why you should care. Many people are looking for opportunities to invest in Bitcoin. Even large corporations are collaborating with existing crypto clients. More stores, both online and local, are gradually accepting Bitcoin payments. The crypto market is growing with more people buying and selling Bitcoin for profit. What's more, the number of people using Bitcoin to store value is increasing by the day. These are valid reasons to care about Bitcoin. If you've not thought about investing in or trading Bitcoin, you probably should. If you run a store or provide services, you might want to start accepting Bitcoin payment. That's because if you don't do that, you will lag behind your competitors. Nevertheless, take your time to understand Bitcoin, how it works, and how to trade or invest in it. That way, you can decide from an informed viewpoint when dealing with this cryptocurrency. Benefits of Bitcoin. Now that we have seen a brief overview of what Bitcoin is, we can better understand how this leading cryptocurrency provides potential benefits to its users. Bitcoin has user autonomy. Conventional fiat currencies are subject to multiple restrictions and risks. For example, banks are vulnerable to boom and bust cycles in the economy. Sometimes, these situations can end in bank runs and crashes, as has occurred numerous times in the past. This means that users are not really in control of their money. Theoretically, at least, Bitcoin promises user autonomy because its price is not linked to specific government policies. This means that users and owners of the cryptocurrency are in control of their money. Bitcoin transactions are pseudonymous. Most online transactions require an array of information to identify the person conducting the transaction. For example, transferring money from one person to another can be done only after the identifying information for parties at both ends is verified. Similarly, online purchases also require you to enter identifying information to make a purchase. The verification process may prevent crime, but it also places an intermediary firmly in charge of the transaction, allowing them to control the provisioning of services to select parties. Bitcoin transactions are pseudonymous. While this means that they are not completely anonymous, the transactions can be identified only by using a blockchain address. An individual can have multiple addresses, just as they can have multiple usernames and passwords for a single account. Internet Protocol IP addresses or other identifying information are not required to conduct the transaction. Bitcoin transactions are conducted on a peer-to-peer basis. The Bitcoin payment system is purely peer-to-peer, meaning that users are able to send and receive payments to or from anyone on the network around the world, unless they are sending or receiving Bitcoin from a regulated exchange or institution. The parties to a transaction do not require approval from an external source or authority. Bitcoin transactions do not incur banking fees. While it is considered standard among fiat currency exchanges to charge so-called maker and taker fees, as well as occasional deposit and withdrawal fees, Bitcoin users are not subject to the litany of traditional banking fees associated with fiat currencies. This means no account maintenance or minimum balance fees, no overdraft charges, and no return deposit fees, among many others. Bitcoin payments have low transaction fees for international payments. Standard wire transfers and foreign purchases typically involve fees and exchange costs. Since Bitcoin transactions have no intermediary institutions or government involvement, the costs of transacting are generally lower compared to those for bank transfers. This can be a major advantage for travelers. Additionally, transfer in Bitcoins is fast, eliminating the inconvenience of typical authorization requirements and wait periods. Bitcoin payments are mobile. As with many online payment systems, Bitcoin users can pay for their coins anywhere that they have internet access. This means that purchasers do not have to travel to a bank or a store to buy a product. However, unlike online payments made with US bank accounts or credit cards, Personal information is not necessary to complete any transaction. Bitcoin transactions are irreversible. One of the characteristics of Bitcoin's blockchain is that it is immutable. Therefore, transactions using the blockchain are irreversible and cannot be amended by a third party, such as a government entity or financial services agency. Also, it is not possible to file a chargeback for Bitcoin sent to someone else. The only way to reverse, in a manner of speaking, Bitcoin transactions is by having the recipient send back the original Bitcoin. Bitcoin transactions are secure. Bitcoin is not physical currency. Therefore, it is impossible for thieves to palm it off the holder. Hackers can steal a person's cryptocurrency if they know the private keys for the wallet. However, with proper security, it is technically impossible to steal Bitcoin. While there are reports of hacks at cryptocurrency exchanges, Bitcoin's exchange has remained impervious to such breaches. Therefore, transactions conducted between two or among multiple addresses are secure. Accessibility. Because users are able to send and receive Bitcoins with only a smartphone or computer, Bitcoin is theoretically available to populations of users without access to traditional banking systems, credit cards, and other methods of payment.